Hello guys, in this video we are going to discuss the solution of the problem validate an IP address. So let us look at the problem statement. The problem statement says you are given a string str in the form of IPv4 address. Your task is to validate an IPv4 address. If it is valid, return true, otherwise return false. So given an IP address in a string format, we just have to validate whether the IP address is a valid IP address or not. So for instance, in this case, this is a valid IP address because of which we are returning true. Similarly, this is not a valid IP address because of which we are returning false. So that's about the problem statement, folks. Now let us discuss the solution of this problem. So to check if it is a valid IP, we are going to check following. We are going to check the number of dots, or we are going to check the number of parts. So for instance, if this is my IP address, the number of parts, which is this, the number of parts should be equals to 4, or if we are checking the number of dots, then the number of dots should be equals to 3. If this condition is not satisfied, then we are going to return false, stating that it is not a valid IP address. After checking this, we are going to check within each part, each element of a part is a digit. If this is not a digit, then we are going to return false. Then we are going to check if len of part is greater than 2 and part 0 starts with 0. If this is the case, then we are going to return false, stating that this is not a valid IP address. And let me explain what this condition checks. Well, let us say the IP address is of this nature. Now, as per our question, this is not a valid part since it starts with 0, because of which we are returning false, and that is what we are checking over here. After checking these things, finally we are going to check if part is within a range. So part should be between 255 and 0. That is what we are going to check. If it is within this range, then we are going to return true. If it is outside this range, then we are going to return false. And these are the 4 checks which we are going to do in order to ensure whether an IP address is a valid IP address. So that's about the discussion of solution, folks. Now let us discuss the pseudocode of this problem. So let us say we want to check whether an IP address is a valid IP address or not, and a string is given to us. So the first thing which we are going to do is we are going to split this string on the basis of dot, and then the length of this IP array should be equals to 4. So if this is not equals to 4, then we can return false, stating that this is not a valid IP address. Otherwise, we are going to check if each part is a valid part or not. So for part in IP, if len of part is greater than 2 and part 0 starts from 0, in such case this is not a valid IP address, because of which we can return false. Now let us implement our second case, which is each element of a part is a digit. So let us implement this case. So for element in part, if not element dot is digit, if this is not a digit, then in such case we can return false, as this is not a valid part, because a valid part should not contain non-digit values. And if the above 2 conditions are satisfied, then let us convert part into int part, and let us check whether the part is in the range or not. So if int part is less than 0 or int part is greater than 255, then in such case it is not within the range and we can return false. Otherwise, if none of these conditions are satisfied, then that simply means it is a valid part and we can return true, stating that this is a valid IP address. So that's the discussion of pseudocode, folks. Now let us see how we have implemented this in Python and C++. So first, let us look at the Python implementation. So the first thing which we are doing is we are splitting the string on the basis of dot. Now we should have 4 valid parts. That is what we are checking. If there isn't exist 4 valid part, then we are returning false. Next, we are iterating on each part and we are checking whether our 3 conditions are met or not. So the first condition is there shouldn't be any leading zeros on the MSB, which is what we are checking over here. If there exists a leading MSB 0, then we are returning false. The next condition we are checking is whether each element of the part is a digit or not. If it is not a digit, then we are returning false. And then finally the last part, which is the part should be within a range which is 0 to 255. If it is outside the range, then we are returning false. And towards the end, if all these conditions are not satisfied, then we are returning true. So that's the Python implementation, folks. Now let us submit our solution. So our Python solution got accepted. Now let us look at our C++ solution. So the C++ solution is a bit different. Now let us look into the C++ solution in order to understand that. Here we are taking a variable num dots, which is essentially counting the number of dots we have, and then there is a substring indicating a part. Now we are iterating on the IP address. If this is a dot, then we are increasing the number of dot by 1, and the substring, which will contains the part information, we are checking whether that part is a valid part or not. If that is not a valid part, then we can return false. And once we have operated on the valid part, we are resetting the substring to empty string. If the ith character is not equals to dot, in such case, we are just checking whether it is within the range of 0 to 9. If it is outside the range of 0 to 9, then we are returning false. Otherwise, we are preparing our substring. And towards the end, the number of dots should be equals to 3. If it is not equals to 3, then we are returning false. And in this loop, as you can see, the last part we were not able to iterate on, because of which the last part is what we are validating over here. If the last part is not a valid part, then we are returning false. Otherwise, if none of these conditions are satisfied, then we are returning true. Now let us look at the valid part function. So the first thing which we are checking is the number of digits. So the number of digits, if it is greater than 3, then that is not a valid part and we can return false. Otherwise, our condition of leading MSBs, if the part contains leading MSB, then we are returning false. And the last condition, which is part should be within the range of 0 to 255. If it is outside that range, then we are returning false. So that's the C++ implementation, folks. Now let us submit our solution. So our C++ solution got accepted. That is all from this video, folks. In case if you have any question or comment regarding this video, please feel free to use the comment section and I'll try to address them. Thank you.